Ah, what's going on, guys? It's Angelo. I'm coming here from Random Rants of Angelo. I'm doing another video today. We're doing my top 10, my way too early top 10 football teams heading into the 2020 season. So, this is just my opinion of where I think guys rank. So, let's dive right into it. We're gonna start out at number 10. I've got the Indianapolis Colts coming in. They finished out the year 7-9 last year, but a lot of people forget that a couple years ago they were a playoff team. Andrew Luck retired coming into the season right before the preseason ended, and they were a dark horse for the Super Bowl. I had actually had them playing the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl, but we all know how that went. He retired, but they return with the best left guard in the game, with Quentin Nelson, and just one of the best offensive lines in the league, and they have a very good defense. It's good enough where if they win the game clock, that defense is going to be strong enough to hold out for the season. So, they did end up adding Philip Rivers and his 12 children to the roster, basically. And that's the thing. They were a quarterback away. I think Jacoby Brissett's a phenomenal backup quarterback. And, he's a guy that can really get it done. But, as the lead guy for a franchise, that's just not him. And then that's nothing wrong against him. He is, like I said, a very solid backup. They had, to me, I gave them a B- in their draft. They got Michael Pittman Jr. coming out of UFC. He's a wide receiver, and he was the guy that I really feel like can make a huge impact. A lot of the experts, just like myself, which I'm not an expert, but a lot of people like me, sat there and said that this guy has all of the tools. He's a big physical receiver, not usually like USC receivers haven't panned out in the NFL, but, I think that he's one of the one that can break the mold. They get a running back out of Wisconsin, Jonathan Taylor, who was my favorite running back coming out of the draft. That to me just shows that they're going to move on from Marlon Mack and not re-sign him, which is very smart. A lot of teams are going to the point where they're not re-signing the running back and just kind of going in and just drafting a guy to replace them. And I feel like they got a guy who they're just going to be able to, replace at the running back and not even skip a beat in that department. I like Marlon Mack, but, I don't think he's going to be a guy that you want to pay big money for. Then they go on ahead and they get quarterback Jacob Eason out of Washington in the later rounds, which I like the fact he's going to be able to learn under Philip Rivers. He has a cannon for an arm. He's very raw, and he could potentially, I think doing that and letting him learn is going to be what he really needs. I don't think he needed to come in and be the guy for a team. So, let's see how that plays out. But I got them slotted in at number 10. Coming in at number 9, the Eagles. Like I said, coming into last year, I had them as my NFC pick to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. But, they still won the division. It just honestly just seemed like, they were they had a war going on with the Cowboys to see who could screw each other, who could screw themselves over better. And, they happened to just be the team that found a way to somehow not screw up at the very end and push for the playoffs. They went 9-7. They add Darius Slay, who was coming over from the Detroit Lions, who is just he has been probably one of the best, he's an all-pro, he's a defensive back, he's one of the better defensive backs to play the game, and, he is a ball hawk. The man is he's a phenomenal defensive back. He's going to really bolster that defense, and, this is going to be a no-fly zone there in Philadelphia. I love that pick. I really love getting him. They also signed Javon Hargraves coming over from the Steelers, and that's just going to bolster that interior line. They already have Fletcher Cox there. They have Brandon Graham. This is going to be a team that their defense is going to be much improved. If Carson Wentz makes that next step forward and he can play at that MVP level that he was the year they won the Super Bowl, and that's the year that Nick Foles stepped in and beat the Eagles. Thank you. But, I do think this is a team that's going to make that next step, but it all really depends on how Carson Wentz does. I felt like they had a really good draft. I gave them an A-. I like the Jalen Reagor receiver pick. He's not going to be coming in and demanding, being a guy who's supposed to step up and deliver early. They already have Alshon Jeffries, a.k.a. Alshon Butterfingers, if you remember that dropped pass he had in the divisional round 2 years ago. But they have J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who I think is going to make a big leap forward. They have Zach Ertz as their tight end. So, you know, this is going to be a guy that's going to be able to learn the playbook, and he's going to be able to come in, and if he steps up and does good, that's awesome, you know. But I liked what they did in the draft. There's a few other guys that they got that's going to be some rotational pieces, but it's just going to make their team better. I think, and that's a weak division, honestly. I like the Cowboys, but I don't think that they're going to really take that next step. So I think they're going to win out the division this year. I think they're going to be a 10-6 team, and you know, maybe they mess around and win a few games in the playoffs. Moving on here, you know, at number 8, I got the Packers. Okay, you know, this could be a bit too low for them, but I really, honestly, without Aaron Rodgers, to me, they're not a good team. You know, they had a decent defense last year, but you know, we all know from the video that I had, I feel like they disrespected Aaron Rodgers. You know, Jordan Love, they drafted him. I like him, and congrats to him for making it to the league. But, you know, Brian Gutekunst, if you ever see this, man, you need to, you're like the stepdad to me. You're like a stepdad, and Aaron Rodgers is your stepson, and you just, for some reason, don't like him. I don't know what it is. You know, you got, like, one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game, and you're just basically doing nothing for the man. You know, this is a team, they didn't do anything in the free agent department this year. This is a team that allowed 184 yards before contact. Okay, that's 184 rushing yards before contact, before somebody even touched the running back. In the NFC Championship game, they did nothing to bolster that line. They did nothing in the draft, really. I gave them a D-. You know, they hadn't drafted a skill player, running back, wide receiver, tight end since 2004, Javon Walker. I mean, like, honestly, I'm just going to move on. I could spend hours talking about what's wrong with the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers is the reason why. I mean, they're going to just chuck it to Davante Adams 150 times, but that's neither here nor there. Moving on to number 7, we've got the Seattle Seahawks. You know, again, they went yet another offseason and another draft where they did not address their offensive line. Russell Wilson is the underrated quarterback of this generation. He already has a Super Bowl. He's been to 2. The man is accurate. He's precise. He's smart. He's very mobile, and he's mobile enough to the point that I like. I've discussed that I don't like how Cam is a straight running quarterback. Someone like Russell Wilson, he moves around and he evades and he tries to make a throw. He's not looking to run. He's looking to make a throw. And if he can't do that, he's going to, throw it out of bounds and he's going to survive another down. And that's the correct way to do it. They have a phenomenal quarterback there in Seattle, and they have not found a way to protect him and keep him upright. They did re-sign Jadeveon Clowney. That was something. I love Jadeveon Clowney. The man's a monster. You know, I remember him coming out of the draft. He was very hyped up. Just go back and watch him in his junior year where he busts through the line and stuffs this running back. I mean, not a quarterback. He made contact with a running back before, like right as soon as he got the ball handed to him. It's phenomenal. This man's a freak athlete. I mean, he runs a 4.5, I think, and he's 6'5". He's basically Cam Newton as a defensive end. That's what he is. That's what he is. And, he's just a freak athlete. I love that. They didn't really do a whole lot in the draft that I liked, but they didn't do bad. So I gave them a C grade, and I think that's very respectable, Water. Moving on to number 6. I might have these guys a bit too low, but I just haven't seen them play, really. That's the only thing. We've yet to see them play. This is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They add Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. First of all, you go from Jameis Winston, being the quarterback. Last year, he threw 33 touchdowns, tick over 5,000 passing yards, and 30 interceptions. And I will repeat that again, 30 interceptions. 12 of those interceptions were returned for touchdowns, a.k.a. the pick six. So you go from a man that threw 30 touchdowns last year to a man that has thrown 29 interceptions. I'm sorry, you go from a man that threw 30 interceptions last year to a man that threw 29 interceptions in just the last 4 years with Tom Brady. I personally I think Tom Brady's a good quarterback. I'm like the normal NFL fan. I don't like him. But at the end of the day, I respect his game. I respect him as a football player. You can't argue what the man has done. 6 Super Bowls. I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with Bill Belichick, but you still can't argue it. He's very precise. He's a great student of the game. And, he's going to, like I said, you're going from a man who threw 30 interceptions to a man that threw 29 in the last 4 years. So that just automatically is going to make your team better. They were 7-9. They were a quarterback away from actually winning the division. They had a top 5 defense and a top 10 offensive line last year. They end up also getting in the draft, which I loved their draft. I gave them A's across the board because I just loved what they did. They got Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa. He's an offensive tackle. And if you guys want to see something really cool, go to YouTube and, watch Tristan Wirfs jump out of a pool. This is a 6'3", 330, I don't know. He's a fat boy. This is a big boy. And you just see him jump straight out of a pool. And I don't mean like this man hopped out the pool. Like he's chest deep in water and he jumps like out of a pool and lands on his feet onto the cement. And, if anything, that's impressive. So, you go from that. They had safety Antoine Winfield out of Minnesota. They drafted him in the 2nd round, which I love him. He's a very explosive safety. He has great instincts. A lot of people might not know, but his father was safety for the Minnesota Vikings back in the day, which I loved watching Antoine Winfield play. Him and, I can't remember the guy's name. Darren Sharper. Him and Darren Sharper were a phenomenal pair. I think Winfield was actually a defensive back, if I'm not mistaken, but his son plays safety. They got Keyshawn Vaughn, running back out of Vanderbilt, which, I think he's going to be a lot better than what they've had here. The running back tandem that they've been throwing out, has just been atrocious the last few years. I can't remember who their running back's name is off the top of my head, but there's a reason why, and it's because he sucks. They end up adding Khalil Davis, a defensive lineman out of Auburn. I like him. He paired really well with I can't even think of his name. The guy that the Panthers just drafted. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank here. But I really liked him coming out of Auburn. I watched them play a lot. I like Auburn just because I hate Alabama. So, I watch Auburn play a lot. And I felt like that he was very, he's going to be a very good, at least rotational piece. Pairing in there with Ndamukong Suh, regardless where they're going to rotate him, because they're going to obviously run a 3-4 defense. That's what they do. So they're going to rotate him in and out with Ndamukong Suh. And I think that's just going to be really good. So moving on to number 5, we got Panthers North, the Buffalo Bills. They did a lot, man. They traded for Stephon Diggs. Josh Allen, he made a great step forward compared from his rookie year to last year. And if he continues to make those strides, I mean, they've got a phenomenal defense up there in Buffalo. And, if he can continue to move forward, and if Devin Singletary, their, running back who's coming into his 2nd year, if he can take over that backfield, they're going to be a solid team. They just needed a number 1 guy, and I think Stephon Diggs gets that. And I like that move. Stephon Diggs was in Minnesota, and you didn't know if you knew Adam Thielen was the main guy. He was going to soak up the targets. Stephon Diggs was just the big play threat. But I think it's going to help his career out, knowing that he's going to be the man for a team in the receiver department. Why they're called Panthers North? Well, first of all, Brandon Beane is their GM. He's the former assistant GM of the Panthers. Their coach, Sean McDermott, was our former defensive coordinator. And they love getting their Panther players. Anybody who's played for the Panthers, they love doing it. And that did not change this offseason. They went out and got Mario Addison, Josh Norman, and Vernon Butler, all former Panthers. They did add Quentin Jefferson, who was not a former Panther, but that's just going to help solidify their defense. Regardless, Josh Norman, he was washed up, but we all say that he was a system defensive back. Well, down up in Buffalo, man, they're running the same system and the same defensive scheme that Josh Norman had success in. Sean McDermott was our defensive coordinator when we went to the Super Bowl back in 2015. So Mario Addison, I've always loved him. He's been a great, phenomenal role player on our defensive line, and he's been our sack leader quite a few times. I love Super Mario. Vernon Butler was an underachiever with us, but, you know, maybe he comes in there and, you know, just becomes the space eater that he was supposed to be for us. He should pair nicely with Star Lotulelei there. I like that. You know, especially he's not making a lot of money. So it was a very cheap pickup. I don't remember what it was for, but I think it was like a one-year deal. It was very cheap. Moving on to number 4. You know, I might have had these guys a bit too low. I might have disrespected them a little bit, but you know, the top 3 I just love so much more. But I've got the San Francisco 49ers, the reigning NFC champions. You know, they didn't really do anything in the free agency. They did end up trading away DeForest Buckner, where they got an extra first-round pick out of that. You know, so to me, that was a bit of a head-scratcher. But, you know, they ended up drafting Javon Kinlaw to replace him. He's a defensive tackle out of South Carolina, you know. Shout out to my boy Kyle Larson, who's a Gamecocks fan. You might know that guy, Javon Kinlaw. But, yeah, no. I really loved Kinlaw. I watched a little bit of tape on him coming out of South Carolina, and I honestly was thinking that maybe the Panthers needed to trade back their pick instead of, you know, taking who they got, which I love Derek Brown, by the way, for the Panthers. I love that pick, but, you know, if they had traded back and ended up getting Kinlaw, I'd have been perfectly fine with that, too. I like him. I love his tape. They ended up drafting a receiver out of Arizona State, Brandon Aiyuk. I guess that would... I don't know if that's how you say his name. It's kind of weird, actually. But, no, they had a really good draft. I gave it a B+ on their draft. They also, I mean, they got Dee Ford on the defensive line. They have Nick Bosa, I'm sorry. Joey Bosa is with the Chargers. But they got Nick Bosa. He was a rookie last year, and the man came in and just did phenomenal. Like, he, as a rookie, was a game wrecker. So, you know, somebody needs to contact the Bosa family and find out what the heck they're putting in their water, because I need some of that, man. Like, I'm getting tired of grinding. I need to get a son that just drinks the water that the Bosa families have, so I don't got to do stuff like this anymore. I mean, I love this, but don't get me wrong. Anyway, moving on, number 3. And now, honestly, number 3, you can, I really think you can put these in any way you want to. Just because this was the hardest. I had so much trouble with 1, 2, and 3 because I didn't know where to go. I really didn't. But I put the New Orleans Saints at number 3. They ended up signing Emmanuel Sanders, who comes back from, I believe, Achilles injury. It was either that or an ACL. I you know, can't remember off the top of my head, but it's an injury that a lot of people don't come back from. And especially someone of his age. He's an older receiver, so I really think he should have been the comeback player of the year. He was phenomenal for the 49ers last year, and I think pairing him with Drew Brees is just going to be, you know, it's going to be, honestly, a match made in heaven. This is a team where, you know, like, I thought the decline was coming for so long. This is their 3rd year in a row where they've had a heartbreaking playoff loss, but this team rebounds, man. They get back on the saddle. You know, I've thought for years, like, with the heartbreaking losses and the fact that Drew Brees is getting older, I was like, the decline's coming. But, you know, this team drafts, and if you're a football fan, this pains me because I'm a huge Panthers fan, and we all know that the Saints are our rivals, but they have been, I can't remember a time where I've seen a team draft like they've hit on their first and second rounders year in, year out for the last 3 years. And they've even hit on a few late-round guys. I mean, they stole Michael Thomas in the 2nd round. He's become probably one of the best receivers in the NFL. You know, they've had several good picks. You know, Ryan Ramczyk or whatever his name is. I don't know. He's an offensive lineman for them. He's been phenomenal for them. So, but this year I gave them an A- in their draft, and it's just because they only had 4 picks. But what they got, man, they hit with. If they had had more picks, I probably would have gave them an A++. They have Cesar Ruiz, an offensive lineman out of Michigan. I love that pick. I mean, you know, you have, for one thing, they've always been a run team. They're top 5 in the run every single year. You know, they have, what's his name? Latavius Murray's their number 2 guy. They have Alvin Kamara. You know, and they just do more to bolster this offensive line to really just help them out because that's where their game is going. They're a run-first team. Yeah, I'm sorry if you hear Butters in the background. He talks a lot, you know, but I have animals, and, you know, I love them. Butters is pretty cool. Maybe you'll get to meet him. But they end up getting offensive lineman Zach Bond out of Wisconsin in the 3rd round, which, you know, I don't know, man. Like, I thought this guy should have went in the second round. And to be honest, you know, I don't think I would have even been shocked if he went in the first round. He has that upside. He's, you know, we all know what Wisconsin produces, man. The Watt brothers came from them. They produce good defensive guys. And, you know, I think, honestly, we're going to look back, and I think that's going to be the steal of the draft. Zach Bond in the third round. Hats off to New Orleans, man. Number 2, the Baltimore Ravens. And again, like I said, man, you can put these in any order you want to. I really wanted to put the Baltimore Ravens at number 1. I'm going to get to why I couldn't in a second, but I really, really, really wanted to, honestly. You know, they have Lamar Jackson, and you know what, man? Like, honestly, hats off to the Ravens, first of all. Like, I'm not even going to get to this trade that they got. I just want to say they've done it right. They drafted Lamar Jackson at the end of the first round last year. Not last year, I'm sorry, year before last. And John Harbaugh built that team around Lamar Jackson. And by built that team around him, they played his strengths, because Lamar Jackson was not the most accurate quarterback coming out of college. And, you know, he didn't have the arm that people want. But, like, this is a team who averages 200 rushing yards a game, which is unheard of. No team ever does that. They run the ball. They believe in running the ball there down in Baltimore. And honestly, the one thing Lamar Jackson did shore up his passing. He became a more accurate passer this year, and that's a big reason why they're able to make such a big leap forward. But, you know, like, not a lot of coaches want to try to build their offense around a certain guy. They want they want your quarterback to play in the system that they have in place. So, you know, it's sometimes in the world you got to pivot, you know, and that's what John Harbaugh did. You know, he was like, look, this is what we have, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in a different direction. And he did that with Lamar Jackson. You know, to me, Charles Darwin said it best. You adapt or die, and John Harbaugh adapted, and my God, he survived. But they get Calais Campbell. They traded up, and they traded for him, and they only gave up a 5th-round pick for him. This guy's a future Hall of Famer, and this is like, Calais Campbell is an absolute monster of a man. I mean, I don't know if you guys have had a chance. I've seen this, like, the man's hands are just massive. I mean, I feel like if I shook his hand, you just would almost feel completely emasculated, because his hands are just ginormous. But what a steal there. You know, they already have a very good defense, and it just got even better with Calais Campbell and somebody else I'm about to mention in just a second. Moving on to their draft, I gave them an A. I loved everything that the Baltimore Ravens did in the draft. They got Patrick Queen out of LSU, a linebacker who, you know, like last year they lost C.J. Mosley in free agency to the New York Jets, and they've been looking for someone to replace him, and they found that, actually. They found that in this draft with Patrick Queen. A lot of people sit here and say that Joe Burrow's the reason why the LSU Tigers went on that run and won the national championship, but you know, and then he did all the credit. I mean, like, all of the praise that Joe Burrow's gotten, you know, he deserves it. He played phenomenal. But Patrick Queen was the unsung hero. The man was a game wrecker for that defense and was a big reason why they were able to do what they did. They go out and they get running back J.K. Dobbins out of Ohio State, which I just love that pick. You know, it saddens me a little bit because, you know, I'm going to have to go to my dynasty league and I'm going to have to drop Justice Hill because there's just no room for him. Dobbins took over exactly what I thought Justice Hill was going to be. They have Mark Ingram, who's going to carry the rock 20 times probably. Well, J.K. Dobbins is going to come in there and soak up 10 more runs, and the guy's, you know, pretty competent at catching the ball. He's basically, you know, coming out of the same college and same offense that produced Ezekiel Elliott. You know, I know that he doesn't get a lot of catches, but that doesn't mean that he's, you know, like receiver illiterate. J.K. Dobbins is the same way. He's a very versatile running back, and I love the fact that he's not going to have to come in and be that guy. So, you know, I think it's going to be a little bit of like what Alvin Kamara was when he came out. He's going to be able to have a smaller workload, but he's going to be more efficient because of it. So, I like that. They get Justin Matabuki out of Texas A&M. He's an interior defensive lineman, and I just love that pick. You know, he is a man amongst men. Like, this is a grown man, like a grown man. Justin Matabuki, I'll tell you what, if you ever want to just watch a grown man abuse another grown man, just go and watch game footage on Justin Matabuki. Like, that guy he's legit. I really love that pick. I think that is going to help out their defense so much, and he's going to be someone down the road that, you know, we're going to remember, in my opinion. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I don't think that I am in this one. And then they get Malik Harrison in the 4th round, a linebacker out of Ohio State. Ohio State just does it right. You know, I like what they do down there or over there. You know, I like the team, and they usually produce good defenders. And I think Malik Harrison, he's going to be a role player with the Ravens. So, you know, there's not a lot of expectations coming in out of him. So I think what he's going to be expected to do, he's going to be able to fill that role. You know, he's going to be able to fill in that role really well. So, moving on to my number 1, I have the Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning Super Bowl champs, and that's honestly that's mainly the only reason why I have Kansas City. I just don't think you can disrespect the champs. And they also, I mean, like, it's really in the AFC, to me, it's between them and Baltimore, really. But they didn't make any additions in free agency, which, you know, like, it's very hard to make additions in free agency when your bank account is $177. I think my 8-year-old nephew probably has more than that in his piggy bank, but that's sad. That's broke. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a running back that they drafted coming out of, I can't even remember where he came out of, to be honest with you. So that's my fault for not putting that down. But they need a running back. And honestly, like, if you're a fantasy football player, this is a must draft right here. You have to get Clyde Edwards-Helaire, because if you know your history, if you do your homework, Andy Reid loves his running backs. Okay, we all know Brian Westbrook, and I think, honestly, that's who he reminds me of, is Brian Westbrook. But Brian Westbrook, you know, LaShawn McCoy, running backs for the Eagles, both guys had phenomenal careers, and Andy Reid was a big part of that. You know, he moves over to Kansas City. He does wonders for Jamal Charles, you know, the running back for Kansas City. Turns right around. I don't think that they could have came in with another year with, what's his name? I'm drawing a blank on his name. I am. It's their current running back that they have right now. I just don't think that you could have go into this season with the same guy. They needed someone. But Kareem Hunt was a man that came out and did phenomenal for the Kansas City Chiefs. Andy Reid loves his running backs. Go get his running backs, okay? This is a guy that you need on your fantasy or dynasty football team. It's a sleeper pick, and it's Angelo approved. Willie Gay Jr., outside linebacker out of LSU. I love that pick. I think he's going to slide right in there and you know, really help bolster. This is a team that really needed help in the run defense. They stepped it up in the playoffs, and that, you know, that's something that they did. But they really need help on the defensive side of the ball. So I gave their draft class a B. But the main reason, like, they have Patrick Mahomes, they have Tyreek Hill. They've got weapons. Sammy Watkins returns. You know, they have, I can't think of his name right now, but the guy they drafted last year, and he's supposed to be, I'm really honestly trying to think of his name right now, but they have weapons there. They have weapons there in Kansas City, and they're going to be right back in the conversation again. Now, real quick, I'm just going to go and give you a couple teams that almost made the list. So these are my 11 and 12s. Coming in at 11, I had the Chicago Bears, which they underachieved last year. A lot of it was because they just had horrible quarterback play from Mitch Trubisky. And they went out and they traded for Nick Foles, Super Bowl 52 MVP. You know, Philly. But no, I think that's going to be the biggest part for them, is they're going to have a guy who is a competent quarterback coming in. Obviously, he got hurt, and, you know, Gardner Minshew, my new hero, took over, and just they gave him the shot, and the Jacksonville Jaguars just going to go with him. You know, but I like Nick Foles. I think that they were a quarterback away. They still have a phenomenal defense. We all remember what that defense was a couple of years ago. And then they get an undrafted free agent, Ladarius Mack, which, why am I even talking about an undrafted free agent? Well, you know, I'm about to tell you. His brother Khalil Mack, you might know him. This man he was the first defender to be a All-Pro at 2 positions, a defensive end and a linebacker. And, they have that there in Chicago. Well, now they bring in his brother. And I'm sorry, if you come from the gene pool of Khalil Mack, you're a notable player in my opinion. I've never watched the man play, honestly. I've never watched Ladarius Mack play. But, if he's his brother, I got to imagine he's, got somewhat of the same talent and skill set as he has. But maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But even regardless, even without Ladarius Mack, they would still be up there in my, in my top 10 potentially. Like, there's a reason why they were a quarterback away. I feel like this team can return to glory. And then going in at number 12, I have the Minnesota Vikings. They did lose Stephon Diggs in that trade, but they got in a haul of draft picks, and a lot of them came in this year. They replaced him with Justin Jefferson coming out of LSU, a wide receiver. They ended up re-signing Kirk Cousins, which, I like Kirk Cousins. I think that he's a not phenomenal, but I think he's a very serviceable quarterback. And, for a team, it really depends on if Dalvin Cook stays healthy. If Dalvin Cook can stay healthy, that team's going to be good. They already have a decent defense down there, and that's going to carry them a long ways. But these two, in my opinion, are going to be fighting for that final playoff spot. I think Green Bay wins the division. I think that one of these two is fighting for that final playoff spot. And to me, it all really depends on if Nick Foles does make a bigger impact for the Chicago Bears than most people think. Because if he does, I think the Bears will edge out the Vikings. But if he doesn't, and, he goes back to the Nick Foles that, was the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback, not the 27 touchdown, 2 interception season Nick Foles, but the one right after that just, couldn't find his footing in the NFL afterwards. If we get that Nick Foles, the Bears are not going to be competitive. If we get Super Bowl run Nick Foles, 2017 playoff run Nick Foles, the Bears are going to be a very good team, and they would be my sleeper pick for the Super Bowl, But look, guys, I'm wrapping this video up. This is a bit shorter. I want to try to make shorter videos, but I do like making longer videos. I got to get back to the Packers thing. I can't stand that, man. I'm sorry. I just can't believe they did not add anybody, Aaron Rodgers is just such a phenomenal quarterback. I don't know why you don't do anything to protect him. It just baffles me. I mean, I understand, if beer chugging was a stat, I would understand why people would think he's not a good quarterback. I don't know. Do we have that film of him chugging a beer with, where he halfway chugged a beer and then David Bakhtiari? We don't.
Why, yes, we do.
Oh, we do? Oh, well. Yeah, phenomenal quarterback, god-awful beer chugger. Guys, I'm telling you, Brian Gutekunst, if you ever watch this, if you get the man some help. Do something. Draft a receiver. Sign one. I don't know. I don't know. You're just do something. Anyway, like I said, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I enjoy making these for you. And I'm trying to learn this as I go. I'm trying to get to a point to where, I can put out great content for you guys. I don't have all the fancy stuff that these guys have. I don't have a microphone. I don't have a place, to sit down and actually do this besides my dinner table. Hopefully, you know, the channel grows and I can do that, you know, from time to I'm going to try to add certain things along the way to try to put out better quality and better content for you guys. But, you know, definitely just like and subscribe to this. And even if I don't, I thoroughly enjoy making these videos. And I hope you guys enjoy watching them as much as I enjoy making them for you guys. But I'm going to hop off here. It's almost time for bed. Y'all have a great evening.